Yeah, you're listening to the Sports Bar, me, Jamie O'Hara and Dean Saunders. We're focused on Liverpool as well because they're having a stinker. But Brendan Rodgers has left Celtic. Martin O'Neill taking over as interim basis. Joining us now to go over what could be next for Celtic and Brendan Rodgers. talkSPORT's chief football correspondent Alex Crook joins us. All right, Crookie.
Evening, Alex.
Good evening, boys. You good?
We're good, mate.
Good.
Big news up in Scotland. What's happened?
Huge news, and I've got to say this has come out of the blue tonight. It's a real bombshell, not just for your listeners who are loyal Celtic fans. I'm sure they've been calling in their droves, but I think for Celtic as a football club as well. I did mention when I was on with Jim White covering Rangers managerial search a week or so ago that I've been told that Brendan Rodgers was unlikely to sign a new contract when his current Celtic deal was due to expire at the end of the season. But I don't think anybody saw him walking out in such fashion, certainly not the Celtic owners. I'm told there's a mood of panic around Parkhead this evening. As you mentioned, Martin O'Neill, legendary former Celtic manager, but 73 years of age now, our talkSPORT colleague, has gone in on an interim basis while Celtic plot what is next for the football club. And I have to say, a statement has just been released on behalf of the Celtic owner, Dermott Desmond, doesn't paint Brendan Rodgers in a particularly good light. I'll just point out a few of his bombshell comments. He talks about Brendan's conduct and communication in recent months, not reflecting the trust that the Celtic board put in him when they, of course, got him back as manager for a second time. He speaks in this statement, Dermott Desmond, about the fact that he expressed to Brendan Rodgers that they were keen to offer him a contract extension to reaffirm their backing and long-term commitment to the manager. He said he would need to think about it and revert, yet in subsequent press conferences, in Desmond's words, Brendan implied the club had made no commitment to offer him a contract. That was simply untrue. He addresses the recruitment, which clearly publicly, Brendan Rodgers has not been too enamoured by, and says that every player signed and every player sold during his tenure was done so with the manager's full knowledge, approval and endorsement. Any insinuation otherwise is absolutely false, in the words of the Celtic owner. He also talks about Brendan's words and actions being divisive, misleading, self-serving and generating what he calls a toxic atmosphere around the club. So quite damning words from the owner. And he ends the statement by saying Celtic is greater than any one person and that focus is now on restoring harmony, strengthening the squad and continuing to build a club worthy of its values, traditions and supporters. So certainly no punches pulled there.
In his defence, I've just got his record in front of me. 76 games, 58 wins, 11 draws, 7 defeats. 70% win rate across all competitions. So that'll be his defence. I suppose he'll say, I've done a good job for you, but you've not provided me with the funds I needed to take the club through the European competitions and to dominate. So I don't know where you see that. Are you still there, Alex? Yeah. I don't know where you see that.
Yeah, I was just going to come back on that and say Celtic are a very well-run football club now. They have plenty of money in the bank should they wish to bring in a plethora of new signings. I think the reason they didn't do that in recent transfer windows is because they were aware of the low ebb that Rangers found themselves at, and maybe it was a calculated gamble that Rangers would be so poor this season that Celtic didn't need to go out and break the bank. What they didn't realise, I don't think, is what Tony Bloom and Derek McInnes were cooking up at Hearts. And obviously Brendan's last game in charge turned out to be that defeat against the runaway Scottish leaders yesterday. As I say, it's an unsavoury end to what I think has been a very good career at Celtic for Brendan Rodgers over his 2 spells. Obviously was very successful first time around. A lot of the fans actually didn't welcome him back with open arms because of the way he departed then. He left and obviously came back to the Premier League with Leicester. And again, I think the fact that he's abandoned ship so early into the season will only add to that criticism that maybe he's not there for the long haul, and that word that Dermott Desmond has used, self-serving. But I think there are 2 sides to every story. Yeah. I think the writing probably was on the wall when he came out with those comments a couple of weeks ago, Brendan Rodgers, and talked about the Honda Civic and the fact that you can't build a sports car from a Honda Civic. He sort of backtracked on that a little bit and said, well, I was just talking about the fact we've not got as much pace in the team as we had now, but I think the board probably saw that as a direct slight at them, hence the statement that Dermott Desmond has released tonight. But he has resigned. He's not been sacked, Brendan Rodgers. We should reiterate that. It's unusual for any manager to walk away from a lucrative contract. And the timing is strange, because I personally think if he'd done this 2 weeks ago, he may well be Nottingham Forest manager now and not Sean Dyche, because I mentioned before that Evangelos Marinakis at Forest is a big fan of Brendan Rodgers, but obviously that job has gone. You can't really see a job that he's going to walk back into at the Premier League, Wolves at this stage. He's not going to take the Wolves job, Jamie. He's not going to take the Wolves job. Honestly, if they get rid of Vitor Pereira...
Why not?
I think they're beyond saving. And if he's frustrated with the lack of spending at Celtic, he's not going to want to go and work for...
I know, but it's the Premier League, no? Crookie, it's the,
Yeah, not for much longer, sadly, I think, in the case of Wolves. But, I mean, in the summer... it could be a completely different picture, because Marco Silva is out of contract at Fulham. Oliver Glasner is in the same situation at Crystal Palace, and Bournemouth, currently second in the Premier League. Their manager, Andoni Iraola, is into the last year of his contract as well. So I think Brendan Rodgers will have takens in the summer, but you can only assume the relationship between manager and board has broken down so badly that he felt he had no choice but to step away.
Okay. Crookie, you're a star, mate. I appreciate your time. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks, Alex.
Cheers, guys. Have a good night.
Right. That was Alex Crook there, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent. Let's go to Brendan, who's a Celtic fan. It's not Brendan Rodgers, but it is a Brendan. All right, mate.
Hi, Brendan.
Hello, mate. How you doing? All right, lads.
Why you left, Brendan? What's happened?
No, well, I was having this chat with my gaffer today, Mark, and I said to him, I could see him going, and he'll probably be within the next week. And I'll tell you who I'd have to replace him. I'd have Brendan Rodgers back. Beg your pardon. I'd have Ange Postecoglou.
Big Ange. Get Big Ange back in there.
No, I'd have him back there in a heartbeat, and I would. And I mean, I don't know what you pair think or anyone else, but like, it always struck me that that Rodgers, he always struck me as like thinking he was like too big for the club, and obviously hence why he left in the way that he did when he went to Leicester. And I don't know, like, he just didn't feel like the right fit when he came back.
He won a title twice.
No, he did, yeah, granted. But like at the end of the day, it's the SPL, isn't he? You know what I mean?
I know, but what do you want him to do? I mean,
I'm glad he's gone. I'll be honest with you. I'm glad he's gone.
The owner's statement's scathing. Like, I've never actually seen an owner come out like that and say
that's ruthless.
So many.
He's basically saying he's buffed it
ruthless.
He's saying he's buffed it off this season, isn't he? He just
but there's two sides to every story. So Brendan will have an argument as well.
I don't think the owners are blameless in this one, because, like, I think your previous caller, I think Crookie alluded to it there. Like, there doesn't seem to be the appetite. Like, at the end of the day, Celtic seem like the ownership of Celtic seem to be coasting it, thinking, well, yeah, we can invest a minimal amount. We know we're going to sell out home and away wherever we go. We're going to sell millions in merchandise. We're going to sell tickets wherever we go. We can invest a minimum amount, and still expect to coast it. And you can't do it. Like, and Hearts were good for the win yesterday.
Who's to blame there, though? I mean, if that's what you're thinking, if that's what they have thought, whether that's true or not, if that looks like the case, well, then Brendan's in his right to say, I'm resigning. I ain't having this. You ain't back me. Just because Rangers are rubbish, don't mean that we can do the minimum and expect to win.
I absolutely agree, but he wasn't the right fit in the first place. He wasn't. And what I would suggest now, get O'Neill into the end of the season with Maloney, steady pair of hands, give Ange the break that he needs, get Ange back in next season, rescue Kyogo from his Blues nightmare. Jobs are good and we'll piss the league next season.
Look, Ange done an unbelievable job there, didn't it? I mean...
And he'll do it again. He will. And he'll come back in the blaze of glory. Bring Kyogo back next season. Get you out back in. Rescue him from that Blues nonsense. Get him straight back down there.
How different is the squad, Brendan, from Ange's? I'm guessing it's completely different side.
Square pegs round holes, time. Square pegs round holes, and that's exactly what it is like. But
I'm just looking again at his record. Do you know in 2 years he's only lost 7 games?
Yeah, I know.
In 2 years.
Yeah, I know, but this season is
70% win record.
They're 8 points behind Hearts.
Yeah, at the moment, it's whether Hearts can keep it up. You know, Celtic have got better players than Hearts, haven't they? They'll get on a run at some point. But it's an unusual club to manage because every game's a cup final in Scotland. They just wait. The teams they're playing against wait for the Celtic are in town, and they go for it. So if you're not up for it, the battle,
Yeah.
you can get turned over.
Well, I think if the manager's not up for it as well, that's gonna filter into the players as well, and it looks like that's what's happened, right?
Yeah, I just think, obviously, I think he's got fed up and he said, right, I can't take you any further than this.